we just did if we know the slope and 1 point. Okay, we've already done that. That was what your homework was just on. We know how to plug it in and find the equation of the line. We also know if we have 2 points, going back here to slope, if we have 2 points, we know how to find the slope of the line given 2 points. So basically, if we have 2 points given to us, we can find the slope. And then once we know the slope, now we've got slope and a point, just like what we just did. Also, you guys just did that already when you had this. And a lot of you were able to do this. That if we had some information, we had basically 2 points here, we were able to find the slope. And then using that slope, we were able to find the height, and then we could write an equation in slope-intercept form. So you kind of did this without knowing you were doing it already. So going back to this, let's say we had 2 points. Let's say we had 5, 9, and 3, 15. So they've given us 2 points, and we need to write that equation in slope-intercept form. So we know in order to write an equation, we have to know the slope and we have to know the y-intercept. The lesson we just did, they told us the slope. This lesson, they're not telling us the slope. So we have no information that we need in order to start filling in for our equation. But we know how to find the slope if we have 2 points. So my first step is just that. We need to find the slope using the 2 points. So if you remember, that was change in y over change in x. How much is the y changing compared to how much is the x changing? Again, really quick here, I'm going to go back to where we took our notes on that. And we said that if we're given 2 points, we're going to subtract the 2 y values, subtract the 2 x values, and that's going to give me the slope. That's how we did that. So, looking at this one, oops, I'm sorry, this is 519, not 59. So looking at that, I'm going to start with this point because the most important thing here is that we're always starting with the same point when we do our subtraction. So I'm going to start with that point and my 2 y values. Remember, this is x, this is y. So if I'm going to subtract my 2 y values, that is 19 minus 15. Again, just as our little refresher here on what I'm talking about, if you're not remembering that, these were my 2 y values. So I'm going to subtract the 2 y values, put that on in the numerator. So if I look here, I back those two, so I'm going to have 5 minus 3. So 15 minus 5, or 19 minus 15 is 4. 5 minus 3 is 2. I then want to reduce that. I want to make sure it's in lowest terms, so that would be 2 over 1. So now I know my slope. Yes?
Well, before you did that, I was also doing that. I was doing before you did that. I was also do that as well.
Did you get 2 over 1?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. So again, if you had started the other way, if you'd done 15 minus 19, started with this point, 5 minus 3, you would have got negative over a negative. Still, no matter which way we do it, we should end up with the same number there. But now we have exactly what we did on the homework now. We've got a point, we've actually got 2 points we can pick, and we've got a slope. So now that we know the slope and we know a point, we can go ahead and do what we did on yesterday's homework, which is plug in the slope and 1 point. So plug in slope and 1 point into the slope-intercept form equation. And solve for B. Again, we've got 2 points and we have a slope. We only need 1 point and the slope. Our equation, remember, as always, y equals mx plus. Okay, Preston voted for 5 and 19, so we will use 5 and 19. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in here. And this point that Preston picked, this is the one we're plugging in for, the y is 19. The slope is 2, or 2 over 1. The x is 5. And what we don't know still is b. We still don't know the y-intercept. But this is exactly what we just did on the homework. So I'll go ahead and do 5 times 2 is 10. I've got 10 now. I want to get the b by itself, so I have to subtract 10 from both sides. 19 minus 10 is 9. And now I know what b is. If we had plugged that in for the 2 and the 15, or 3 and the 15, actually last year my class picked 3 and 15, you can see I plugged in the 15 and the 3, and I still got a b of 9. So it doesn't matter which point we pick. We are going to get the same y-intercept. And so then my last step, after I get all that, write that up so you guys can see. Write in slope-intercept form. 2 over 1. 2. Right. Of those points. And again, it doesn't matter which point you start with as long as you consistently start with the same point. So which point did we want to start with? So exciting getting to pick. Which point do we want to start with?
0.
This point? Alright, so this is a point. So the y's are 0 and negative 1. Y minus negative 1 over 2 minus 5. So if I do a keep flip change here, keep flip change, that's 0 plus 1, which would be 1. And then if I did a keep flip change here, that would be 2 plus negative 5, which is negative 3. So my slope is negative 1/3. If you did it the other way, you may have gotten a negative in the numerator, but you still should have gotten 1 negative over, and then 1 over 3. Alright, so let's look at the next step then. Now we need to take our, oops, I don't know how I put B there. Now we need to take our equation and we're going to start plugging in for that. Now, here's a hint. If I were you, I would use this first point because it's got a 0 in it. And that's probably going to make it simpler when we're trying to simplify, to have a 0 in there and not have to worry about a number there. So when I go to plug in, I'm going to use this one down here. So y is 0. My slope, I already said, was negative 1/3, or negative 1/3. Again, doesn't matter where that negative goes as long as there's only one negative. Times my x, which is 2, plus b. So 1/3 times 2 should not give us too much trouble since we have our handy dandy calculators. 1/3, remember your ABC button is your fraction, so 1/3 times 2 gives me negative 2/3 plus b. And then what am I going to have to do to get the b by itself? Well, I don't know if I want to minus 2/3 because this is already a negative 2/3. How do I get rid of a negative 2/3 with addition or subtraction? Add 2/3. So minus 2/3 plus 2/3 cancel out, and I have 0 plus 2/3, which is 2/3. Again, that 0 came in handy there because I didn't even have to calculate that. 0 plus whatever is that number. And so then, now I know what b is. I know what the what the slope is. I can write my equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals negative 1/3 x plus 2/3. Yay, we did it. So again, nothing brand new here. It's just a matter of putting all of it together. So it does. So listen.